So, as we begin to approach the beginning of March, college football recruiting in the class of 2024 is really about to start heating up. And today, we need to turn our attention to one of the most gifted prospects in that class, a player that ranks as a top 100 prospect overall, regardless of position in high school football, and an individual who just recently released their top 5 list. And of course, today, we're talking about Aaron Butler, the 4-star athlete out the state of California who just recently released a top 5 list that consists of teams such as Colorado, Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, and the Washington Huskies, something we've got to break down today. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you surprised that this is the top 5 list for Aaron Butler? And then let me know where you think he ends up. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions are massive, and we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I would love to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And before we can go talking about this top 5 list, let's first address the question, who is Aaron Butler? Well, Aaron Butler is a top 100 player overall, regardless of position in the class of 2024. But if we really want to get specific, he comes in as the number 75 overall prospect in the nation, a top 10 athlete coming in at number 7, and a top 10 prospect in the state of California coming in at number 8. And one thing we talk about all the time whenever I talk about some of these states, mainly being states such as Georgia, Texas, Florida, and California, if you're a top 10 prospect in those states, odds are you are a dude, and Aaron Butler is absolutely a dude. Now, he's classified as an athlete, and when you turn on the film, it becomes very apparent that he could play either way. He was a one-time commit for USC, and I think that the plan was for him to play defensive back for the Trojans. However, as time has gone on, every time I watch his film, I just think he is so smooth as a wide receiver that he would be a dangerous weapon for any one of these teams. And in some of the interviews I've heard Aaron Butler talk, he kind of hints at playing wide receiver. So wherever he ends up, that's going to be interesting, but he has the ability to play either side of the ball. So whether you play him at wide receiver or defensive back, he's got you covered. But speaking of having you covered, we also need to talk about how Home Field has you covered for all of your college football apparel and accessory needs. Guys, one thing that's super in right now is vintage logos, and Home Field has the best. No matter your team, they've got you covered. And what's more than an already strong lineup of college football apparel? Well, for viewers of this channel, Home Field is absolutely hooking it up. If you use the code down in the description and use code ATTS15 at checkout, Home Field is giving you 15% off new customers' first order. Once again, use the code down in the description at checkout. Use code ATTS15 for 15% off new customers' first orders. Thank you so much to Home Field, and with that being said, back to the video. And now let's jump into this top 5 list, and we're going to start with Colorado, because one of the things that stood out to me from the jump was that he had 3 Pac-12 teams in the list of top 5. Now, I understand with the Pac-12 negotiations, who's to say who's going to remain in the Pac-12 for the foreseeable future, but for the time being, 3 Pac-12 teams in the top 5. And Colorado makes complete sense to me. Look, I've talked about this time and time again, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it needs to be said. I'm not surprised whenever we're going to see these prospects in the class of 2024 include Colorado in their top lists. Why? First and foremost, you have Coach Prime. We've talked about it on this channel multiple times. He moves the needle. Their wide receiver coach, Brett Bartolone, was the offensive coordinator at Jackson State, and they were putting up points. So if you're Aaron Butler, you'd be getting to work with Brett Bartolone if you were playing wide receiver, and Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator who Colorado is very lucky to get, who is just the head coach at Kent State, putting up monstrous numbers on offense. So this makes complete sense to me. If you're an offensive playmaker, looking at some of the coaches Colorado has, it makes sense. And plus the hype they're putting out, that's something we have absolutely got to watch. And the next institution on this list is another one we have absolutely got to watch, and that's Alabama. Because Alabama is the only institution in college football that has gone back-to-back drafts where they put 2 wide receivers in the first round of the NFL draft, and they would have done it 3 years in a row if John Mechie hadn't gotten hurt, because he sustained a knee injury and still went at the top of the second round. Had he not gotten hurt, I absolutely believe he and Jamison Williams would have been first-round picks, giving Alabama 6 first-round wide receivers in the span of 3 years. Something that is just insane production. And another thing that Alabama has going for it is they have a 5-star quarterback already in the class of 2024, the only of these 5 teams that currently have a 5-star quarterback committed to their recruiting class. On top of that, the iron sharpens iron mantra. I think that always helps Alabama. Some of these prospects are just so competitive that they view view the opportunity to play amongst other top prospects not as a hindrance, but as something that's going to set them over the top. I know most of us look at it and say, why would they go to Alabama? There's already so much talent there. Why would they put themselves in a position where they're competing against all these people? Well, it's because these individuals are far more competitive than most of us. They look at it as an opportunity to better themselves every single day against the best at their respective positions. And that same logic goes into the next institution we're going to talk about, Georgia, because the Georgia Bulldogs absolutely can claim the iron sharpens iron mantra with the way they have recruited. And I think that they're going to be transitioning and trying to get more wide receivers involved just because they're going to try and remain as balanced on offense as they were this previous year under Todd Monken. And if they're able to maintain that balance, wow, that's going to be a really tough team to stop. Now, one thing I stated for Alabama is that they were the only one of the institutions of these top five that had a five-star quarterback committed in the class of 2024. Well, it's important to note that Georgia is right on the heels of the number one quarterback in the class, Dylan Raiola. And for those of you sitting there wondering, why would that matter? Why would having a five-star quarterback matter? Well, if Aaron Butler is to go and play wide receiver, I think it's conducive to success to look at the opportunity you're going to be walking into and say, hey, there's a guy at the quarterback position that can get me the ball and I have a ton of faith in. In the case of Alabama, their quarterback, Julian Sayin, is in the state of California, so he and Aaron Butler already probably have a familiarity with each other. But having those blue-chip quarterbacks, that's absolutely a massive recruiting pitch. It's absolutely a massive recruiting tool, something we talk about at length. It's also important to note that the Georgia Bulldogs have a crystal ball inserted in their favor on 24/7 Sports. So when you look at how well Georgia has recruited and the success they're having on the field, it may be very hard for any of these institutions to pry away Butler away from the Dogs if they're already building a formidable lead. Though all institutions can recruit, it's going to be tough to flip one from Kirby and the Dogs if they're well ahead. Something we have to watch out for. But now we need to turn our attention to the final two teams on this list, being Oregon and Washington. And we're going to start with the Ducks, because I'm never surprised when Oregon is on these kids' top list. Look, growing up, Oregon was just a school everybody wanted to play as when we were playing NCAA because of the uniforms, because of the Nike. It's just an intriguing institution. Fast forward to now, and they're coming off of a good year. Dan Lanning is his first time being a head coach, put together an impressive outing. And now the question is, how are you going to carry that into year two? They recruited well, being able to amass a top 10 recruiting class in the nation, and one has to imagine if they were able to hang on to Dante Moore, a five-star quarterback in the class of 2023, would that give them a leg up in this battle? Now, I'm not saying that it would have. I'm simply asking the question. In my mind, I think it would have to have. Dante Moore was such a dude at all the circuits, you'd have to imagine that if they still had him a part of that class, it'd be something special to watch. And finally, we need to talk about Washington. And I'm not surprised Washington is here because look at the numbers they put up this previous season on offense. If I'm not mistaken, Michael Penix is still out there throwing for yards. He amassed so much offense for the Huskies this year. And their offensive system is conducive to big plays. And especially if you're a wide receiver, you know you're going to have the opportunity to make a lot of big plays and you're going to have the ball in your hand. So I think Washington makes a lot of sense, but the question I have for them is, what are you going to do this season coming off of the season you just had? Because though I don't think any one of these teams need to win a national championship to win Aaron Butler's commitment, you do want to go out there and show you're still trending in the right direction. And in no way, shape, or form am I saying I think any of these teams are going to be trending in the wrong direction, but it's just something we've got to watch, and I'm very interested in seeing. But I'm really interested in hearing from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know where you think Butler ends up playing, because he is a very gifted prospect, one that any of these institutions would be very happy to have. Can't wait to hear from all of you. That's it. See ya.